Welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning on Channels Television. Today on the program, we're going to be focusing on the maritime sector with particular emphasis on the cabotage law, which has been in existence now for about 10 years. And I'm being joined on the program by a fellow of the Certified Institute of Shipping, Mr. Galtima and Liman. Thank you so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Yes, thank you very much. I was actually earlier on listening to you when you said I was the Special Assistant to the Director General of NIMASA. And I said I was going to correct that impression. I was the Special Assistant to the Director General of the National Maritime Authority, two of them, for 6 years before it was transmitted to
NIMASA.
To NIMASA, exactly.
I stand very well corrected.
And I was actually also a consultant to the Transport Committee of the National Assembly that worked on the background for the cabotage shipping policy in 1999.
Okay,
exactly.
So from that time till now, let's just generally assess the maritime sector.
Well, it has not been doing so well. And for obvious reasons, if you look at the statistics on ground, what you have, as revealed by experts, it's less than 10%. 90% of the trade, the shipping trade, the maritime trade, is still, unfortunately, being dominated by foreign outside mercantilist interests, both in terms of even the terminal operations, the new concessionaires, and all that kind of a thing. So when you look at it, a key strategic component of the national economy, it's in the hands of outside interests, tells you a lot about what's going on in the aggregate economy.
So who should we be looking at? Well, we can't be pointing fingers, but how should we be looking at addressing this challenge, which we already know is on ground?
I don't think we are addressing it in the manner that we ought to address, because we are more interested in the legalistic, the elements more than the practical considerations, the realities of the trade. And this is a very sophisticated trade, the shipping trade. It's driven by professionals worldwide. And this funny thing about shipping trade is that it's a derived demand, mind you. Ships are there because of a trade. Okay. Now, so the income that you expect from shipping is actually insignificant. You understand? It contributes about 8% of the totality of the income that comes from the aggregate trade. It's the internet foreign trade. Okay. But it has certain latent benefits that only professionals see. Now, the element of information, the element of intelligence, once you control the shipping trade of a nation, you are in a position to participate in the globalization process as an active member of somebody who is there on ports all over the world. So you may be a loss leader. You may be a loss leader in shipping trade per se, but the other hidden benefits that come from the aggregate economy, from the exportation, from the foreign exchange generation, from these things are hidden and cannot be seen by pedestrians. And that's why most times when discussions of shipping comes, people say, "Oh, what is it even contributing to the GDP?"
Exactly. I was just going to ask, how much does the maritime sector actually, contribute to the economy? Now, paying, particular attention to what you've just, told us, shipping in particular.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. You should not be interested in terms of because it's insignificant anyway. It's less than 10% of the aggregate contribution that you see from the other.
Can it contribute more?
Of course, it can contribute not only for itself, it's supposed to contribute to the development of foreign trade, which is where the money really is.
So why isn't it contributing as much? Is it that the policies that we have in place are not, making the right things happen?
First of all, it's an invisible sector of the economy. It's intangible. And as I said, because of the sophisticated nature of the trade, it's only professionals that see and can advise policymakers as to what these ripple effects that are not seen can add on to the national economy. Now, for advanced countries who have been in the trade, UK, Britain, USA, and the Far East nations, they've seen that when they gave a lot of incentive, a lot of support to shipping, it had a ripple effect in terms of this. When they downplayed shipping, like in the case of China in the 15th century, when it was doing so well, and said, "Look, this is quite a costly venture. Let's close down this maritime trade." China went down the tubes. Now suddenly they realized their foreign trade was not doing well because of the consequence of the fact that somebody did not understand what was going on in shipping. Now, the reason why we're not doing so well, as you rightly asked, It's an international trade. So the playing field is the sophisticated foreign traditional foreign companies vis-a-vis the Nigerian developing country that is just about they said 100 years old now, or So here you have the requirement for it's capital intensive, for aggregation of funds. You also have the need for manpower. You also need collaboration.
Okay.
You also need synergy between so many other sectors of the economy, which is not forthcoming within the Nigerian nation.
Well, Galtima, I think the reason why the cabotage law, then bill, was actually signed into law was so that all of these things could be addressed.
Certainly. When I was privileged to be one of the people when Obasanjo was being the former president in 2003, we were with him in the Aso Rock that time, when he was being sensitized as to the need of this cabotage. And the first statement he made was that I had about 19 ships, when I was the military head of state. And subsequently, when I became the civilian head of state, president in 1999, these ships are no longer nowhere to be seen. So I am wondering what you guys want me to do with the cabotage. But if you want me to sign that into law, the bill into law, make sure that there is a provision to enable a waiver regime, in which case when the Nigerians are not capable of performing, I can now ask the foreign interest to go ahead as business as usual. And this is the area that had for 10 years been utilized by the outside interest, arguing that yes, Nigerians lack the capacity to do this. And so it's been, of recent I learned that about 150 million US dollars had been aggregated, and the requests for these funds to be disbursed is now sitting on the table of Mr. President, I learned, Jonathan Goodluck.
Okay. Now, these funds, are they supposed to be for the repairs of whatever vessels that do we even
they've given some for vessel repairs and all that. And you should say?
Then to purchase anyone.
You see, it's not about really, as I told you, the trade is not just you have money and then you can come into shipping. It's not like a bus, just ordinary Okada rider operation and all. The shipping, it's on the one side you have the domestic leg, the ports here where it operates. On the other side, it has also a regime of ports. That's if you're talking about the coastal shipping, it's ports within the nation. If you're now talking about the international shipping, you have ports within the nation and ports outside the nation. Thereby, the international laws become applicable to the domestic.
But then, as much as possible, the reason why this cabotage law was actually, looked for, was actually signed in, from a bill into a law, correct me if I'm wrong,
yes,
is to ensure that the vessels that are, are wholly owned by Nigerians, that's one, and they must also be registered in Nigeria, must be crewed by Nigerians.
And must be built here in Nigeria.
And must be built and repaired here.
Exactly.
In Nigeria. Now, if we know that this is what the law actually says, then why do we give room for so much foreign players to come on the field?
You see, I wouldn't know the reason why the Minister of National Planning was fired yesterday. The shipping, as I told you, it's built into a strategic regime, including the foreign trade. If you handle shipping as an all-alone engagement, you're not seeing the picture. You need to look at the long-term perspective. You need to have a strategic plan and to see where that role the shipping, international shipping will play, and where the coastal shipping will play, and where the inland river transportation and all this will play. So it's a holistic viewpoint, a helicopter kind of a viewpoint that you need to have. We don't seem to have this. And therefore, the synergy that you expect from even the parastatals, the National Inland Waterways, for instance, with the NIMASA, the National Maritime Safety Agency, and the cargo interest, the NNPC local content, they don't seem to be working in synergy. And that's one of the
Is that the reason we haven't really seen so much domestic participation, in maritime, in Nigeria's waterways? Like
no, part of it.
Supposed
the other reason is that it was predicated on the fact that the cabotage was going to take advantage of the oil and gas trade, and the oil and gas trade, everybody knows, is a highly integrated trade. And the regime that is operating in Nigeria is such that the export, it's on what they call the free on-board basis, which means the Nigerians are totally placated from participating in shipping right from the word go, because it's a hangover of the colonial legal provision. And the imports are cost it used to be cost insurance and freight, then cost and freight. Now, what is happening is that if you want to participate in the coastal shipping, the provision of the contractual terms must be provided in such a way that the person who is going to provide shipping services will be factored in at the designing stage of the program implementation. I.e., let me give you an example. $9 billion was signed by the Dangote and Co. and Central Bank, and everybody was there. The cabotage regime ought to start at this particular stage, where the elements that will involve the support services for the refineries, the movements of so and so will be built in here as the loan facilities are being provided. But what you have right now, it's discussions are going on, the cost and insurance freight element for import is going on, and you don't see shipping representation at this particular stage. So by the time you now come back to have the implementation stage, and you come back with your paper and say, I'm supposed to do cabotage, it's too late. So a forward contract ought to have an insertion where the cabotage element comes into play.
So who should be putting this forward?
It's part of the strategy because, as I said, the central bank will be involved, must be aware of what is going on in shipping. The presidency itself is involved, must be aware of what is going on in shipping. Yesterday I was looking at the Guardian, and again, one of its public advertisement, so I can call the name of the company. Dangote was looking for a vessel that was to move some products from Warri to Calabar, LPFO, low power fuel oil. And he's saying, look, I need a vessel for that cabotage trade. And he has given a 7-day window for that transaction to be concluded. Now, in this 7-day, the NIMASA is making an application to the minister, bureaucracy. The minister will now look at it, pass it on to all down the hierarchy, and then eventually pass it on to the president. That is not done. If you want to have a shipping, 7-day window, you must empower the Director General of whichever agency that you've now said is a focal point for in this case, is the National Maritime Authority. I can tell you, with all degree of seriousness, that the Director General of Maritime Authority cannot approve $1 million. And the $1 million in shipping is absolutely nothing. So these are the kind of dilemma that we had. In the foreign-going vessels, when we had problems with what they call the port state control, most of the Nigerian ships were berthing in Hamburg, in Liverpool, in Tilbury, and they have just slight problems here and there, and they needed rectification. $500,000 $1 million. You need to now apply, the Director General needs to apply to the minister will now apply to the president. And by the time you come back to say you want to pay those bills, because of the existing port charges and all that, your bills have now risen to $5 million. So we need to understand that it's time-bound, and we need to also empower these organizations, and we need to be proactive in terms of seeing where the Nigerians will be factored in the overall trade. At the same time, we need to also understand that the international oil companies that are now controlling about 95% of the international oil trade, in spite of whatever Nigerian content that you are talking about, will not let go easily. So what happens is that you as a nation, having the strategic comparative advantage that you have, must be a very active member in terms of the negotiations to see how you can bring in your own local people into the game.
You're going to hold on to that thought.